Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ilia, and yes, thank God it's Friday. Today is the last day, last working day of the week. And
some
here
people
we
still
are.
have work tomorrow and on Sunday as well. Good morning and welcome. I'm Dashan Hussein Usman. As you can tell, we're excited to be here, definitely. And thank God it's Friday to you too. Jumat Karim to all the Muslim Ummah as well.
You know, when you say some people have work on work, I mean, it looks like, yours sincerely are not taking part in that. I mean,
you know, well, some have, some don't. That's just it.
yes, but we do.
Yeah,
right?
we do.
We do.
Even while we're resting, we're working, right?
Yes, exactly. So, well, today we'll be looking at quite a number of issues. First of all, today, Facebook is 18 years, and it's quite a remarkable move and journey so far. If you've seen how communication has evolved over the years and the role of Facebook in that respect. So, very interesting one we'll be looking at today. It's also World Cancer Day.
Definitely.
And we'll be beaming our searchlight on that as far as Nigeria is concerned, Nigeria's journey to be specific.
Yes, we also be taking a look at the Nigerian youth and how we can get a better deal ahead of 2023. And as usual, we'll be bringing your way, headlines from national dailies across the country and also top stories and reports in the last 24 hours. But for now, the news highlights.
Yep, let's begin with the news highlight. The first one, at least 6 persons have lost their lives following an auto crash at the Ahia Udele market along the river layout Aba, Abia State. A truck laden with containers filled with goods coming from the ever-busy East Street area lost brakes at a river layout and rammed into the market, killing 6 persons with tricycle trapped under the wreckage. It is feared that besides the 6 dead persons, many others may be trapped under the truck. Reports say that the driver of the truck had to maneuver the vehicle into a path at the market, as it would have killed more people if the truck had continued on the road. Now, following the auto crash, Abia State has directed the sealing of the Aba waterside market and relocated the traders to a safer environment.
All right, still on highlights. Bandits on Thursday stormed Dadara village in Jibia local government area of Katsina State, where they killed 6 people, including the village head. Confirming the incident, the police public relations officer in Katsina, SP Gumbo Isa, said 5 people were killed, including the village head Jafaru Rabiu, popularly known as Magaji Yangaya, and his house help Mansur Anye, and abducted some people. The police spokesperson added that 3 were influx of bandits into Katsina State, or there are influx of bandits into Katsina State as a result of the ongoing military operations in Zamfara and Sokoto states, and the problem the security operatives in the state are trying to contain. According to the reports, among the abductees is also a maid who is about to get married, adding that several other people sustained injuries during the attack.
Now, West African leaders are holding an emergency summit in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, in response to a recent spate of coups in the region. The talks on Thursday are initiated after Burkina Faso on January 24th became the 3rd member of the 15-nation Economic Community of West African States to be overtaken by the military. Burkina Faso President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore is deposed amid public anger at his handling of violence by armed groups. Now, Thursday talks also come days after the president of Guinea-Bissau, Umaru Embalo, survived an attempted coup after assailants armed with machine guns and assault rifles attacked the government palace. The region's recent turmoil has stoked fears among ECOWAS countries that efforts to steer West Africa towards stability and democracy are failing.
All right, moving on to the final highlights, and it has to do with sports. Mohamed Salah's Egypt are through to the final of the African Cup of Nations after beating hosts Cameroon 3-1 on penalties at the end of a goalless 120 minutes in Yaoundé on Thursday. Goalkeeper Mohamed Abou Gabal was the hero for the Egyptians, saving from both Harold Mukudi and James Liaseliki in the shootout at the Olembe Stadium before Clinton Nje blazed wide with Cameroon's last chance to keep their dream alive. Salah, usually the fifth penalty taker for his country, was not needed as Egypt advanced to a final showdown against Senegal at the Olembe Stadium on Sunday. That will see Salah come up against his Liverpool teammate Sadio Mane, with the Pharaohs chasing a record-extending 8th African crown while Senegal continue their search for their first title.
Well, that's that for the news highlights. We'll now take a look at the events of the world in history today, and that will be after this breather. Take a look. There you have it, today in history. Now, aside the two issues that we'll be looking at, talking about the World Cancer Day and, of course, the marking of Facebook's 18th anniversary, today is also World Interfaith Harmony Week. This is day 4, and quite interesting to talk about that. I mean, who needs that better than Nigeria?
Yes,
if you talk about interfaith harmony, isn't it?
Yes, very, very important.
Religious tolerance is a basic issue, and it's a basic conversation for us here in Nigeria. And I think that with that, the country can foster national unity and growth as well. So it's very important that these conversations, are hard. We have some of these committees. We have groups.
We have them in every state.
Groups. Yes.
Every state, in the country. And, it's a good thing, the way they push for a united front in each state, especially with the insecurity going on, terrorism and all that. They're actually doing a good job pushing for unity in Nigeria.
True. And, the two major religions in Nigeria, Christianity and Islam, both preach peace, and how to coexist, how to be tolerant, how to be patient and show love, to fellow humans.
Definitely.
And so I feel that if we are to practice what we profess, there wouldn't be need for some of these crises that we see and here and there and all of that. So so it's very important that we practice what we preach. We practice what we say, as a people. So, and that's very important. You see how that will affect even our politics, because, a lot of people have said, Nigeria being one of the most religious countries in the world, and yet we're dealing with the kind of corruption that we have in the country. I think that's a contradiction.
But funny enough, this week is not just for religious groups, it's also for non-religious groups, to increase understanding between them.
Yeah, so very, very important that we mark this day, and I believe that Nigeria needs that more than any other country. So, now let's move ahead and begin with the newspaper, the dailies on Daybreak, but that will be shortly after this breather.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, now we will begin with Daily Trust newspaper, and yes, we have in the studio Nuruddin Abdullah, editor 21st Century.
Chronicle.
21st Chronicle. Such. Beg your pardon again. I say this every day, and then today it's just.
It happens.
Yeah, so we have him in the studio, and he'll be giving us perspectives on some of the stories that we have before us today on our pages, on the pages of our newspapers. Now, the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper: FG links 96 persons, 156 companies to terrorism financing. The writer says families of BDC operators protest in Kano. You also have Northeast lost $6.9 billion to insurgency. That's according to Zulu. And then he says that Boko Haram child's play if ISWAP allowed to grow. Now, the governor is raising this alarm, and then you would see the infograph there showing you losses in 13 years of Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. Now, take a look at that. $6.9 billion. That is, if you convert that to Naira, that's 3 trillion Naira lost to Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. You have 5,000 classrooms destroyed. 800 municipal buildings destroyed, including local government secretariats, prisons, and traditional rulers' homes, among others. You have 713 power distribution lines destroyed. Imagine what the situation will be. You will recall some weeks ago, we heard about how residents in Borno State are complaining about power outage. You also have these 1,600 water sources vandalized. And then also individuals, companies, and forex suppliers with links to terrorism there on the other side, showing you 96 persons, 424 allies, 123 firms, and 33 BDC suppliers. So these are some of the discoveries by the Nigeria security agencies. And then below that, you would see 2023 Kwankwaso in tight corner, weighs 3 options. And you would find also at the top there, Dangote, Kaduna, Peugeot Assembly rolls out new cars. And then World Cancer Day. Patients lament treatment gaps in Nigeria. And then you have Lai Aregbesola Yari set to fight back as APC inaugurates state's ESCOs. At the very bottom, Nigeria needs to address high fertility rates. That's a Buhari. 18 killed, 3 injured in Yobe road crash. And then finally, 4 family members found dead in Abuja poultry farm. These are the major stories on Daily Trust cover today.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to the Guardian newspaper. The lead story there says 1 year after NIN-SIM policy, insecurity scams fester. And we have writers that say bandits, kidnappers collect ransom in millions. Nigerians rue losses as SIM swap fraudsters empty bank accounts. No security operative has asked for database info to rescue victims, Pantami claims. And NINs issued hit 73 million as enrollment centers across 4,000. And you'd find a pictorial there with a story on CNN's ethical challenge that brought down its president. And you can read this big story on page 20 and 21. At the top there of the pictorial, you'd find a story that says APC inaugurates 34 state chairmen as Boni stays away. Boko Haram may be child's play to ISWAP, Zulum warns federal government. Amechi Malami sued over alleged illegal award of 91.7 billion naira rail contract to Chinese firm. And only 11% of Africans vaccinated against COVID-19. And right at the footnotes there, you'd see Toureyer Adwa's Cancer Center abandoned 12 years after raising billions. You can find details of that story on page 6.
All right, now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper this morning, Buhari rebuffs lobby to shift APC convention date. The writer says no venue in party's notification letter to INEC. Well, and then you see also state chairman inaugurated. And so other stories there at the top there, Ladoja joins high chiefs to endorse Balogun as Olubadan. Hijab row resurfaces in Kwara. Osun APC governorship primary holds February 19. Nigeria rejects coup as means to change government. These are the very obvious story on the front page of the Nation this morning.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Punch newspaper. A lead story there says PDP CSOs lampoon FG as NFRU uncovers 96 terrorism financiers, 123 firms, 33 Bureau de Change operators linked to terrorists, FG alleges. Terror financiers' supporters will be revealed in court, says AGF office. With transparency's verdict, Buhari can't boast of fighting graft, says PDP. We also have stories at the bottom there that say Kwara Baptist School shot as fresh crisis erupts over hijab. Kingmakers nominate Lekon Balogun as new Olubadan. We have tensions as hoodlums attack Arigbeshola faction secretariat, suspects arrested. We also have a story there that has to do with the teenagers in Ogun State who chopped off their friend's girlfriend's head, saying courtroom overcrowded as Ogun teenage killers are arraigned and remanded. And you can find details of that story on page 5. At the top there, we have a few stories that say Kano Sokoto absent as APC inaugurates state chairman amidst heavy security. Ohaneze inaugurates lobby panel, restates Igbo presidency's benefits, and NINSIM linkage. Security agencies gets Buhari's nod to access subscribers' details. And workers' fate unknown as explosion rocks a Delta oil platform. You can find details of that story on page 5. These are some of the top stories on the front page of Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at this day newspaper, and there are almost the same stories there. The lead story says, Zulum, we must defeat ISWAP at all costs, else Boko Haram will be child's play. You'd see also at the very top there, ECOWAS to deploy stabilization force in countries on the threat of military takeover. Osinbajo, democratic election, only way to government change. And then these are some of the main stories on this day, this morning.
Okay, and finally on Business Day, we have Africa needs industrialization-led growth to match Asia's success. And we also have a few stories that have to do with technology, how tech firms are growing healthcare business, hospital-focused companies sustain growth. Why single-digit inflation may elude Nigeria in next 5 years, and also Middle East smart mobility investments, a lesson for Africa. These are some of the stories on the front page of Business Day.
All right, now let's get perspectives on this. Like we told you, we have Nuruddin Abdullah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle, in the studio to give us perspectives on this. Now, welcome to Daybreak this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes. All right. Now, I mean, the story about, federal government's linking of 96 persons and some companies to terrorism financing seemed to be a big story all over the newspapers this morning. What do we know so far about this?
I think very little, because this is not the first time that the federal government is banding figures of people linked to terrorism financing. You remember some Bureau de Change operators, about 400 of them were arrested last year. more than 6 months after their arrests, they were not arraigned in any court. So that is it. It's a good thing to uncover, identify those who are channeling funds to these terrorist organizations. But it's another thing altogether to bring them to book. That is the concern of all Nigerians. Minister of Information and Communication yesterday, you reeled out figures. Fantastic. But that is not enough. That is not enough. Like you reported that the families and the associates of those 400 people arrested, some of them have been stage protesters in Kano. There should be transparency in handling this. Again, all these are figures. What is behind these figures? Who are the faces? Let's do what the unarrested is doing. If you're unarrested, for instance, the Judiciary Department, blacklist a company. It should be there on the website of the U.S. Treasury, State Department, or even FBI. Companies XYZ belonging to ABC is involved in AAA against the rules of what if you?
Yeah, so there you're talking about the naming and shaming of these people.
That is it.
But I mean, this issue about presumption of innocence until proven guilty by a competent court of law, is something that we have to deal with in this instance, isn't it? The federal government says, we have to, they have to be arraigned first in court before then their identities will be revealed in that process.
400 people were arrested in some northern states more than 6 months ago. Why are they not arraigned? Problem is, these delay tactics being adopted by the relevant government agencies will create or will send some meaning or signals to people. Some people will even say it's all about politics. You understand? You arrested people more than 6 months ago. What are you still doing with them? Arraign them. They will be publicly arraigned. Yes, it's left for the court to decide whether they're guilty or not. And it's left for the prosecuting agencies of the government to diligently prosecute these cases.
Again, that's another issue of investigation. So whether or not we have sufficient evidence.
So like the names given yesterday, I believe NFIU will not just say XYZ company or Mr. ABC is involved in terrorism financing without getting their facts together. So in that case, why the haste in mentioning these figures? Why can't you allow the relevant agencies? NFIU has these figures. The DSS, NI, should identify who these people are. Or even arrest them. The arraignment, you make this public something when they are arraigned. I will know them. It's only then that they will serve as a deterrent to others.
Okay, now we have the governor of Borno State saying that ISWAP must be defeated, or else, Boko Haram would just be like, Boko Haram should be, would be like child's play and all that. No, is he saying that, as far as we're concerned, Boko Haram, the fight against Boko Haram has been won, and then what we have to contend with now is ISWAP? And he also talked about, being time to consider hiring mercenaries.
Yes. Yes, we celebrated when Sheikah was killed by ISWAP, you understand. But yeah, Sheikah was a madman, everybody knows. Bombs in the markets, raiding of schools, herding those children to the forest, enslaving them, and what have you. Yes, but ISWAP is deadly, like the governor said. And we said it over time. If you look at their anatomy and physiology of ISWAP, it's an international organization, more educated. They have more competence in handling IEDs. And there is technical know-how when it comes to transfer. Most of these fighters here, they fought in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the likes. Unlike Sheko, who was an isolated beast, to use that word, on a rampage. So that's the problem. And again, while the communities where Sheko was operating were totally against him, it is not the same thing with ISWAP. ISWAP tried to indoctrinate the communities where they're operating. Okay, unless if you are with uniformed security organizations, you are safe. They claim to operate an Islamic government. If you do this, they equally, another thing is, they have so much money. They recruit young men, and look at the poverty indices in those areas. So the general population are at home with them. That makes them deadlier because it's easy to indoctrinate those people. Unlike Shekau that was killing them. So like he said, they have a better technical know-how, logistics, international connections, and what have you. So if you allow them to have a firm ground, by the time they reach certain state, they will snowball into something that the Nigerian authorities cannot contain.
Okay, I want us to talk about this terrorism financing thing, in more depth. Now, talking about our justice system, our judiciary, in terms of, making sure that these issues are heard, they are tried, as quick as possible, and then we have a judgment, as soon as possible. Will there be need for us to, last year, I recall that the Minister of Justice, was talking about revamping, courts for terrorism, revamping some of those courts for trying of terrorism cases and all of that. Do we need to now, maybe dedicate some special courts that would deal with that so that there will be speedy, hearing of these matters?
I think that is not bad because, like terrorism, we had to have, the federal government had to set up special courts, even though they were suspended recently, I think in Niger State, where these Boko Haram suspects were being tried by some specialized courts. Minus politics, because of the electoral system, the constitution. After election, you need about 3 months to adjudicate, and dispense with all the matters related therein. All other things are suffering. Most importantly, the prosecution. Our DP and directorates of public prosecution are not doing enough. You see sometimes a suspect will be arraigned before a court. Adjournments are made. The prosecutors are not in court. Sometimes even the judges will be threatening that, okay, during the next adjournment, if you guys are not here, I'll dismiss the case. So when it comes to terrorism financing, because terrorism financing is more lethal than what you find on the streets. Calculate, just use media reports in the last 1 year, how much ransom was paid. Running into billions. The ransom economy, where is it based? Certainly not in the forests of Birnungwari or forests of Zamfara or forests of Kaduna or Sokoto. No. In the urban cities. They are in the BDCs. They are in the real estate. And whatnot. You can, from what we heard from victims of kidnapping and banditry out of you, those Fulani full soldiers are just living off peanuts. They don't spend the millions paid as ransom.
Okay, now, again, another thing that was said by the minister is that, 45 people have been arrested and they will soon be, charged and all of that. But if you look at the number of the cases that are before the courts, about 285 from last year. I mean, not to even talk about the 400 BDC operators that were, arrested as well. Now, only 45 are to face trial and arrested and will begin, to face trial and all of that. I mean, that is not equal to the number of, uncovering, data uncovered, from what we've gathered so far. So what happens to the rest? Or it means that some people are still at large or what?
That is the problem. The problem is that some people expressed these fears when these figures were read out yesterday, that only those without the adequate connections with people at the totem pole of power will be arraigned. That's it. What I wanted yesterday was, when the minister was addressing the press, he should give us a list. Look at it this way. When this administration came in 2015 May, there was arms probe panel set up by the president. In no time, all the companies that benefited from the Dasuki loot were mentioned. At least that is enough. We look at Mr. Ayuba as a very God-fearing man, but we realize that we are eating money meant for our troops, meant for weapons. That is enough, even though most of them were not arraigned. Names of companies and individuals were mentioned and published on the pages of newspapers. So that's what we wanted yesterday. You mentioned over 100 companies linked to terrorism financing. It is not the office of the minister that is saying this. No, it is the NFIU, an agency of government, that should know whose responsibility is that. List these companies. You have CAC. Who are the promoters of these companies? Or are they, some people, are they behind these companies by proxy? You understand? That is one. And secondly, mention the names of people involved. Let Nigerians know them. Let us know. And let's look at them that, okay, these people are being suspected of the mass murder in Sokoto, in Kaduna, in Niger, in Zamfara, and even in the Northeast. That alone will send signals to others. It will serve as a deterrent. But most of these things are bogus, or rather ambiguous names. Which company are you talking about? Who are those people? You know, we're in an election year. That's why some people are even saying that maybe it's a reaction to the Transparency International rating, which is not favorable to the government. Like I said, early last year, more than 400 people were arrested. None of them was taken to court. Why? Why the delay?
Okay, now you'd actually agree with me that this topic is too vast for us to discuss in a few minutes. So we'll just move on to other stories on, on the front page of newspapers. Now, on this day newspaper, there's a story here, still talking about securing the country, though, that ECOWAS is to deploy stabilization force in, countries under threat of military takeover.
That's very funny. I watch President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana talking about it. They are treating the symptoms. Why are people celebrating when there are takeovers in these countries? From Mali to Burkina Faso to Guinea, people celebrated. Why? Something is wrong somewhere. That is what this ECOWAS leaders should look. They should use the mirror. There are even reports on presidents since the Guinea pouch. There are some presidents that don't even stay in their presidential palaces now. Why? It simply means that there is absence of governance. There is no link between the governors and the governed. That is it. Look at what is happening. Look at all the development index in Guinea. Look at it in Burkina Faso. These people, yes, they conduct elections, periodic elections, but you know, they massively rig it and they stay put without any improvement.
No, you know, that's bringing, you know, to bear the big question of whether democracy is working in Africa, really, is it?
It is not about democracy. These people came through democratic means, so to say. Some of them are even, there is democracy.
Was it actually democratic? Because, I mean, you mentioned
That's
that.
why he said in quotes.
You know, they rigged, most of them rigged the elections and come to power.
And they stay put. So, in that case, ECOWAS has expelled about 3 of its member states now. The number will keep counting. I'm not praying for it. But if you look at the way things are happening in most of these African countries, you know that these things are inevitable. Stabilization force, who will fund it? Who? They can't militarize this thing again, no. Because one by one, when I, you know, in Ghana, Vice President Osibanjo represented President Buhari. I look at that, you know, they have that, all the president and the heads of government of Africa will have that group picture. Yeah. I took the one they did last, and you see the people missing. So what they should do is to ensure governance in their states. And ECOWAS has so many protocols, even on anti-corruption. Most of these people that were toppled are grossly corrupt. Some of them horribly brutal. Massive crackdown on activists and people who are calling for simply do the right thing. So, if mobilization force, how? The Burkina Faso, the latest guy in, not Burkina Faso, the attempted coup in, which was the last country that they did now, last week. The man was...
Burkina Faso or Guinea-Bissau?
Guinea-Bissau, you understand. Look at it. There was massive crackdown. And what are the reasons? They say that there are so many arms groups and the commander-in-chief could not do anything. That's the reason given. And you know, when people heard of it, they were already on the street celebrating. They were tired of the man. So they should look inward. What are those things they are doing?
Well, even though the Guinea-Bissau president escaped that coup, it wasn't a successful one. He still remains the president. But in other countries, we've seen that it actually, you know...
And nobody knows where this thing will come next. They were accusing that it was the Mali people that did it. There is a reason why it happened in Mali. All these signals are not hiding. They are there on the bear. Tackle them. Fight corruption. Some of them, they have converted, you know, most of these African countries are small, not more than Kano State or even Jigao or what have you. So they have converted this.
But the thing is it just really about corruption in these countries? Is it about, you know, democratic practices in these countries? Or do you think that there is this element of, you know, the rise in terrorism, you know, on the African continent? Some of these countries are dealing with, you know, the fight against insurgency, just like Nigeria.
Why the question you should ask is this. Why is it that these countries have national armies? Why are they incapable of tackling these terrorist groups? Corruption. We mentioned it here. Billions have been budgeted every year on defense, procurement of military hardware, remuneration, training, intelligence, and what have you. But where do they end up? Pockets of some few generals and their public servant collaborators. So that's the same thing. The national armies are being reduced to nothing.
So how can we guarantee that these generals taking over can ensure that they now fight this terrorism frontally? I mean, if they themselves do not have a clean slate.
From Mali to Guinea to Burkina Faso, look at those that took over. They are not generals. They were angry with the generals. They are middle cadre officers. Lieutenant colonels, or whatever. None of them is made brigadier. Some of them are H. Because they were tired. You know, by the time you peak to that level, what is happening here? How many majors, how many
generals?
But
by the time you are a major in the army,
Yes.
for instance, now you don't even have access to the loot.
But you know, Nuruddin, Africa is not new to coups. You know, Africa is not new to coups. We've had this in the past, and almost similar similar reasons were given, you know, for these military takeovers. And Africa is still where it is today.
Yes, there was an interim, you remember? There were coups long ago, and we had, in most of these countries, we had almost 2 decades of successive democratic regimes. But by the time, take what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire. You remember what happened? Robert Gueye was there, he lost election, took over. There was somebody who was there for almost, Ouattara contested for 3 times. Later he won. But what happened? After the constitutional 2 terms, he's still in power. He amended the constitution. He wants to stay there for life. Okay. So that's the problem.
Okay, now with all the attempted coup and the fear of, you know, coup in future. Now, do you still think democracy is the way to go? Because we have Oshibajo here saying democratic elections is the only way the government can change.
That's the ideal thing the Vice President is talking about.
But if done the right way?
Yes, take Egypt for instance. Egypt were under Mubarak for more than 30 years, Hosni Mubarak. The economy was stable. Food was non-issue. Gas, non-issue. It's affordable too. There was a serious, during the Arab Spring, there was mass protest. Mubarak was booted out. But what happened? 1 year later, they realized that the gas, the cooking gas they took for granted for 30 years, is now not affordable to them. The bread, the electricity, the infrastructure is failing. ISIS are marching through the borders of Egypt. And there was protest. And they brought back General Sisi, Mubarak's associate and a general. So that is it. You know, in Africa, we find it difficult to differentiate. Democracy is the best actually, because we have the voice. We can stay here and talk. When it is a militarized, we can't even, the military will invade this place, even though there are some instances, even under this democratic regime that they attempted. So now, look at Sudan. So there is a thin line difference for a typical African who can provide me security to go to my farm, to go to the market, or to go to the office, my locality. Who can provide, if I have headache, if my wife is in labor, she can go to a local hospital and get these things now. Is it a military man or a civilian man? So that is it. So, and again, with the proliferation of social media, people are enlightened now. 30 years before now, or 20 years before now, you can only hear the few newspapers, known online, government-controlled televisions and radio stations. But now, from the remotest part of Africa, you can know what's happening. You can engage. You can interface through all the social media platforms. So now there is ability for Africans to hold their leaders accountable. So what our parents and grandparents tolerated 40 years ago, 30 years ago, we can't tolerate it now.
All right, now, but let's talk about lessons for Nigeria. You know, are we learning lessons from some of these experiences that we are seeing? around us, or we are just sitting down tired and say, well, Nigeria is immune and only democratic processes can bring power?
We are learning our lessons, maybe the hard way. Last week, the federal government suspended ad infinitum, if it use that word, the implementation of the Petroleum and Industrial Act, meaning they will remove subsidy. It was based on the security reports. We had answers just to protest the brutality of the police. If you allow people to go on streets protesting the removal of subsidy, only God knows what will happen. With what happened in Burkina Faso, with what happened in Guinea.
Are we just merely suppressing, these, issues, or are we actually treating them the way we should treat them?
I took the letter. We suppressed them. And what this government did, they postponed the doomsday 18 months now. So whoever takes over next year will bear the grunt, That's what the government did. And I don't think it was right, because the subsidy removal thing, for me, I am not a fan of the NLC, you understand? It's the best to go for the country, for the economy. But because of these political reasons and security concerns, either we are bent on implementing it, but when the security agencies brought something, said, no, Guinea is not far. Our youngsters here, have access to what is happening in Guinea, and we know what happened even in Burkina Faso. Alpha Conde, we don't even know his whereabouts now. You understand? We see what happened to in Mali, even the Prime Minister, Keita is dead. So they said, we have 200 million people. More than half of this population are youngsters. More than half of them are not doing anything tangible. So they just need a trigger to pour onto the streets.
All right. Okay, well, we'll take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the program. We'll have Nuruddin Abdallah, editor, 21st Century Chronicle, giving us perspectives on the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. It's still Daybreak on Trust TV, and we're still reviewing the papers right here in the program. We've talked a whole lot about terrorism, its financiers, what's happening in the country, as regards insecurity. There's this particular story that, touches a bit on insecurity as well, but has to do with, the NIM-SIM policy. And 1 year after, they're saying insecurity and scams are still fester. All right, right here in the studio, yes, we'll still have Nuruddin Abdullah, editor, 21st Century Chronicles, in the studio with us, still reviewing the papers. And I just want you to talk about, this particular story and how they're saying, a report actually saying that Nigeria, even despite the NIM-SIM policy, SIM swap fraudsters still empty bank accounts. And also with Pantami claiming that no security operative has asked for database info to rescue victim.
So, we should have a cause to worry by the minister's pronouncement. So what that means is there is no synergy between the relevant government agencies. Why should they ask? Why are they not asking? When this thing started, when the linking of the NIM and the SIM started, we celebrated it, thinking that in no time, calling bandits taking away people and calling for ransom will be history. But 1 year later, with more than maybe now 70 million, right? 73 million now. Completed, but bandits are still taking away people, and they're still calling with numbers registered in Nigeria, and they take ransom. Why? We thought that there will be a database, a pool, where all the security agencies, and even when Abakari was there, what we learned is these people are hardly tracked. You may know that, yeah, this is their location, but the security agencies, to be fair to the minister, don't have that strategy and tactical competence to conduct a rescue operation. From what we heard from the victims, when your loved one is taken away, you can report to the police. They'll tell you all manner of stories. The first thing they will do, they will instill fear in you, advising you to go and pay the ransom. They say, yes, sir, we can do it, but it's a 50-50 thing. We can conduct a tactical operation and the victim may die. So that's the problem. The database is being built, but the security agencies are not harnessing their capabilities to do this rescue. Even the VIPs that were abducted, the criminals are only arrested after after ransom was paid. So that render, as far as insecurity is concerned, this linking of NIN with SIM is almost, I don't want to say useless, you understand? Because up till now, with over 70 million registered, 1 year after this policy has started, you understand, ransoms are being paid. When the mobile lines were cut off in some parts of Sokoto, Katsina, and Kaduna State, they were writing letters, you understand, to demand for ransom and what have you. Well, we thought that people should be able to track them and got them arrested, and so they can be punished. Maybe another thing maybe they will do with is, harmonization of all our cards. Even Mr. Ayuba has accounts in 6 banks. Now it means that he has 6 ATMs. His driver's license should be there. His national ID card should be there. All those. Why can't you harmonize them? It's about cheap, right? You sort it out. You just
I mean, we already have a BVN.
Exactly. Which bank you want to use and what if you. One card is okay.
But I mean, to do all of that, you need some level of investment in technology, isn't it? You need some level of, I mean, if we look at the budget of the Nigerian police, for instance, for most times, what takes a chunk of the budget, is mostly recurrent and overhead cost, running, paying salaries of police officers and the likes. If you dig deep and try to investigate, you are likely to see that the investments, in technology and intelligence gathering is very, very low. And I mean, if you are to say, for instance, go around the police commands across the, various states, are you likely to find digital centers, where they actually, do some of these things?
I don't think so. Not long ago, there was a report that the Nigerian police has only one forensic expert. In fact, they don't even have a forensic lab. It's as bad as that. But again, we are investing in this NIN and SIM linkage. You know how much it guzzles software? The DSS is equally procuring technology. The NSS office and whatever, look at the budget figures. Here's the police as it is, is battling with horrible infrastructure, incompetent and inadequate manpower and the likes. But what I think should be done is, we have this database. We should be able to track these people. We should be able to train some personnel that should be able to do rescue operation with minor collateral damage. You understand? That's what we should do. And again, look, take the military. Nigeria, we have been battling insurgency in the last 12 years. And I remember some of our troops were trained in some foreign countries. But up to now, God forbid if there is what do you call it? Some people take some people hostage, maybe some VIPs. I'm not talking about you and me. It's happened to you and me, only our colleagues in the social media will talk. You understand? Do we have what they call the SWAT, for instance, to do rescue? Maybe we have to invite foreigners to come and do it for us. There are certain things that, particularly, crime is evolving. Crime is going digital. But unfortunately, our security system is still analog. That's what it means. That's why Yahoo boys are having a field day. Because the Nigerian police, only EFCC can handle it. The Nigerian police, what it simply means is employ those experts. If you bring all our softwares evolved, at the same time viruses equally evolved to penetrate those things. But unfortunately, like I said, crime is going digital. But our security system is going analog.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, very interesting
Yes.
perspectives there.
All right, let's, dig a little or delve a little into politics. Now, on the Nation newspaper, we have a story that says, still on the APC convention, by the way, Buhari rebuffs lobby to shift the APC convention date, and, a report saying that there is no venue in the party's notification letter to INEC. And, the state chairman, in some states being inaugurated as well. You can talk about all of these.
Yes, APC is having a hard time. They are new into the system. They are 6th year in power. They have most of the party per se, because it is a metamorphosis of parties that had been in opposition since 1999. So managing this day-to-day conflicts, is becoming difficult for them. The convention, I think, will hold.
On 26th.
Even though INEC had to beg the ruling party to inform it as the law as the law requires. And I had to cry. But now maybe with this now, maybe they will write where the convention will hold. Maybe in Lagos. When INEC beg and cry, they have to hurriedly put down the letter. And they forgot the...
Could it be maybe because of the fear of this, implosion that, some have, raised concern over? Like yesterday, during the inauguration of the state chairman at the national secretariat of the party, we heard that hoodlums, went there trying to, have access, force themselves into the venue, and only God knows what could have happened if they were able to penetrate, into that place.
I don't want you to call them hoodlums. They are supporters of the party.
Well, from the reports we gathered, they are unauthorized persons who are not meant to be there.
Remember, after the Congress, the state congresses, in about 10 states, there were parallel congresses. You remember? From take Zamfara, for instance, 3 factions. You only allow one access into the secretariat. Why deny my supporters? I'm a valid card carrier member. So that's why I don't want to call them hoodlums. They are political parties. They are APC supporters.
Yes, they are, but they are not meant to be there, isn't it?
Yes, because of the problem. It means that there is a problem.
So we have a struggle as to who is the legitimate chairman here, of a particular state, for instance.
Sure, yeah. With the inauguration yesterday, the litigation are ongoing. You remember what happened in Osun? Faction loyal to the governor, Governor Oyetola, was inaugurated. Supporters of Minister Regbesola, the one you call hoodlums, were denied access into the APC secretariat. And what happened in Osun? His campaign office was razed, was attacked by gunmen and vandalized. In fact, there is no even, Kano is missing, because if Kano were there, you know what that means? Sokoto is equally missing. What is happening in Gombe? What is happening in Ogun?
So
what is happening in Kwara?
So these are pointers to the fact that, look, the APC convention may not be as successful as expected.
I don't know what you mean by success. The convention will hold, but the Abdullah Adamu committee is yet to resolve these issues. Okay, Lai Mohammed will be at the convention, right? As a cabinet, as a grade A cabinet member of the Buhari administration. Aregbesola will be there. Ganduje, a serving governor, will be there. So you can imagine the confusion, because all these crises were allowed to fester to that level. That's the problem with the APC. They see a small fire, they will ignore it.
Is that why
until it snowballs into
so is that why the governors insist that the convention must hold, thinking that because they have an edge somehow, on these issues?
Not governors per se. This is an election year. The presidential primaries will hold some months to come. So you have to, and the Malabuni committee, this is his third extension. The first 6 months, the second 6 months, I want to feel. And some people have even gone to court that they say, no, he is there. What is he doing there is illegitimate. It's unknown to the law of the party or the Electoral Act. That is one. And there is need to hold convention, to have party structure, democratic party structure before the primaries. There are so many interests. Many people, like some have even indicated interest that they want to be president. They want to fly the party's presidential flag at the election. So they are now scrambling to put their men at the national level, just like the struggle to ensure that they foster their men at the state executives. So that's it. So it's the various interests. Is it the Lagos? Is the governors? The governors have about 4 factions. The ministers, they call themselves the Buhari boys. So the party, the APC convention, you know, is a pointer to what we should expect at the APC presidential primaries. And again, you know, this is the first time they are doing this while in government. In the past, you know, it is only Buhari. But now Buhari will not be in the ballot. In the past, people stepped down for Buhari. Buhari will not be in the ballot. So now, who is the Buhari's most anointed?
Okay, now just before we wrap up, right, there's this particular story that, you know, seems like it's not so important, but it should be a thing of concern. And it has to do with the president saying that Nigeria needs to address, it's on health, by the way, that Nigeria needs to address high fertility rate.
Yes, I think it's one of the most beautiful things that the president did yesterday. There is a policy. We talk about development. We talk about we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this. But the problem is that we can't even plan. When you are doing free education, for instance, you have a security man who has 4 wives and he has 40 children. Which government can educate those children, for instance? So that's the problem. Even those countries that are doing free education, the kids are 4. 1 wife or 2 at most. So when you keep on reproducing, you live in a typical layman's perspective. You live with a wife in a 1-bedroom apartment. After 10 years, you marry more wives. You have now 15 kids. And you say you will remain in the same 1-bedroom apartment? Impossible. So that's the case with Nigeria.
You know, from what we are hearing that, you know, there are figures, you know, suggesting that Nigeria, you know, have about 16,000 beds in one day. You know, from what we, I mean, it could be more.
16,000 in 1 hour.
16,000.
In 1 hour.
You know, in 1 hour in a particular day. So you can imagine, you know, how that will, you know, further multiply. And if you also take a look at, you know, some of the examples set by some of our lawmakers, I mean, what we have a lawmaker.
It's ridiculous. He's from my state. You know, he took that gangsterism to the national limelight. It's horrible. So people hide behind religious things to do all these kind of things. Indonesia, there is no Muslim country that is not controlling its fertility rates. No. Because you can't plan. You can't educate the children of a security or an unskilled person with 40 kids. No. The resources is scarce. Even the land is scarce. So when you plan this, you have to look at the other way. The other room must be regulated.
Important, very important. Let's end it on that note. On that note, thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning. The other room indeed needs to be regulated. Thank you so much for that. All right. We'll be speaking with Nuruddin Abdallah. He's the editor at 21st Century Chronicle, and he's been giving us perspectives, interesting perspectives on Daybreak this morning. We'll take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we will be taking a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Now, here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make any impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
Okay, welcome back from that break. It's still daybreak on Trust TV in case you're just watching us. And we just finished treating a lot of topics, a lot of subjects on newspaper review. Right about now, as we all know, it is World Cancer Day. And, you know, World Cancer Day is celebrated, you know, all over the world, and it is to enlighten and give information and see how, you know, cancer can actually be tackled in every society. Now, today, World Cancer Day is observed on February 4th this year, and the aim is to inform and encourage people on its prevention, its early detection, and the treatment. And this initiative was actually taken by the Union for Campaign and Advocate for the targets of the World Cancer Declaration signed in 2008. The new World Cancer Day 2022 through 2024 campaign has the theme Close the Care Gap, you know, which actually means from 2022, 2023, 2024, you know, it's just a one theme, close the care gap. But for this year, I think it has to do with early detection. Yes, this is what cancer is all about. But before we go into it, let's take a look at this particular report.
Cancer refers to a very life-threatening, debilitating condition where cells in the body, which are not supposed to multiply unmitigatedly, start multiplying, and they multiply in an unregulated manner. And after some time, they start spreading through different routes to other parts of the body, causing significant dysfunction and harm to the host. The problem with cancer is that it can affect any cell in the body. Deriving from that, cancer may affect the eyes, the brain, the chest, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, any part of the body. No part of the body, as far as it has living cells, is spared. It is very common and is a significant cause of morbidity and mortality. In the African population, Nigeria, with Nigeria contributing the most, 1 in every 5 Africans are Nigerian, it's important to know that Nigeria also contributes a significant burden to the cancer prevalence. Cancer prevalence significant burden to cancer prevalence. It is also important to remember that the facilities and the cost implication for managing patients who have cancer is also a significant burden to either the families or the healthcare sector at any point in time. But before all of that, the question is, how common is cancer? Cancer, there are difficulties with assessing different epidemiological values and the rest, but it's important to remember that there are certain claims that as much as 10 to 30,000 Nigerians are diagnosed with cancer every day. Now, this number in 200 million is a significant percentage. Some of these people may not have access to healthcare intervention, and when they do, they are unable to afford these interventions. So cancer risk factors would include things that you can do something about and things you cannot do anything about. So modifiable risk factors are things like exposure to cigarette, large quantities of alcohol consumptions, exposure, sedentary lifestyle, where patients are inactive. People who are obese have a higher risk factor of developing cancer, exposure to radiations, exposure to UV radiations, exposure to nuclear radiations. Even patients who work, people who work in the radiology department in different sectors of the economy, the health sectors and the mining sectors and other sectors. People who are also exposed to certain infections. It's been known that liver cancer, for example, is typically mostly caused by hepatitis B and hepatitis C. Other forms of cancers, like cancer of the bile duct, have also been related to certain types of biliary worm infestations. Cancer of the skin has been seen to be higher in people who have low pigmentation, things like people who may have 1 or 2 forms of albinism, and people who work in the open under the sun and are exposed to UV radiations are more also at risk of developing cancers. People who work in certain industries like the dye industry are also at risk of, because of exposure to carcinogenic materials, are also at risk. People who are in certain businesses, like the entertainment businesses, where they are exposed to steady amounts of cigarette smoking, whether directly or indirectly, and people who smoke generally, because cigarette, for example, has been shown to have as much as 5,000 cancer-causing materials, which we call carcinogens. So this, to a large extent, can also increase the risk of patients developing cancer. Some people may have an inherited risk factor to develop cancer. So patients who have a family history of colon cancer may also have their relatives being at risk. Patients who have breast cancer may also have their relatives also being at risk. Patients who have ovarian cancer may also have their relatives being at risk. It's also important to also not forget that patients who are engaged, who in the course of maybe other forms of treatment have need transplant surgery. So, for example, patients who have been exposed to transplant surgeries will require medications that reduce their immunity, and therefore these patients are also at risk of cancer. Patients who have low immunity, like patients who have HIV and are not taking medications, and because of that low immunity, their body, in the body, they are also at risk of developing certain forms of cancers. The key thing is that whatever form of cancer a person develops, there are presentations. Some of the presentations and clinical presentations are usually as a result of the local effect of the cancer, the distant effect of the cancer within the body, and then whether the cancer is involved in producing one or two active chemicals, which may be hormones or otherwise. So sometimes patients who have cancer in certain parts of the body would have symptoms that are related to pressure from the mass effect. So patients who have cancers of the throat will have difficulty swallowing because it will be obstructing the free flow of fluid or water. Patients who have cancer of the intestine may have some form of constipation. Patients who have cancers of the urinary tract, like prostate cancer, they may have problems with urinating. Whatever it is, the symptoms will be significantly related to the part of the body that is affected. Now, other symptoms may be as a result of a spread from one part of the body to another. So a patient may have a colon cancer in one part of the body, but because it has spread to the lungs, patients may have problems with breathing and all of that. Now, cancers, even when they present, commonly some cancers will present without any symptom, totally without any symptoms. At this stage, the only way some patients may find it is if, on presenting to the hospital for other health complaints, these cancers are incidentally discovered. In other situations, if, for example, the patient decides to do a general checkup, the patient may again discover some cancers. And then there are some situations where, due to age and gender, there are certain routine screenings for cancers that are very common. So cancers of the prostate, for example, they are advocates that a regular screening, because in men, this risk of this cancer increases with age and may be tied to higher levels of a blood-detected chemical called the prostate-specific antigen. In the case of women, cancer of the cervix is one preventable cancer that can be picked up early. And to do that, patients typically would require regular pap smear to a large extent. So then patients who may have hepatitis B or C, because of the risk of liver cancer, will require regular screening to a large extent. So it's important to understand that there are certain cancers that are found in certain parts of the body, but screening is critical and important in detecting them. And then not to forget colon cancer. In fact, it's statutory required that people engage in a screening for colon cancer in a timely manner. So some patients, it's recommended that they get screening every 10 years if they are doing a colonoscopy, where a pipe is passed through the backside to visualize all part of the large intestine in search of cancer. Now, irrespective of whatever cancer a patient may have, it's important to understand that the time of presentation is critical. So a cancer may present either in the early stage or in the late stage. Now, at the early stage, there's a small chance that there's some chance that permanent cure and remission of the cancer can be achieved with radical treatment. But in the late stage, when it has spread to different parts of the body, it's typically difficult to achieve cure. Most times what the patient will be offered is palliative intervention, where the patient will get some chemical treatment in the form of chemotherapy, some radiation treatment in the form of radiotherapy, and other interventions that may help reduce the chance or the speed with which the patient loses vitality and dies off. So to a large extent, because of the variety of cancers that may be present, interventions will depend on what type of cancer it is and the understanding of the cancer. In a nutshell, it's important to remember that early identification of and diagnosis of cancer is critical in achieving cure. But be that as it may, it is important to also put to note that there are preventive measures that reduce the risk of cancer. Some of these preventive measures may be generalized and some may be specific to certain cancers. For example, example of generalized preventive measures means just healthy living. Some of those healthy livings we all know about, things like exercising regularly reduces the risk of cancer. Maintaining a healthy body weight using the body mass index calculation, which your doctor can do for you, is also critical in ensuring that patients reduce their risk of cancer. Then avoiding those agents that cause cancer, things like cigarette smoking, is also critical. At this point, it's important that I clearly spell out that there are two kinds of cigarette smoking, two general groups. You have primary smoking and secondary smoking. So primary smoking means that the patient involved is actually or was actually a smoker. But secondary smoking is also a very passive form of smoking, where the person involved is sometimes aloof and does not understand the risk he or her is being exposed to. But to contextualize it, allow me to say that if you are in a room where you have people smoking and you sit there and quite a number of people are smoking and you sit there for 1 hour, you would have consumed between 10 to 20 sticks of cigarette. You have not taken a cigarette, you have not held a cigarette, you have not dragged and inhaled it, but by the mere fact of sitting there, you are passively inhaling smoke. And that in itself is passive smoking. And the risk for cancer for patients who are passively smoking is no different from those people who are also smoking directly. So it's important to remember that fact. The high intake of alcohol is also very, very, very important and very common, and a risk factor, especially for liver cancer in patients with other forms of infection. Early exposure to hepatitis viral infection, hepatitis B and hepatitis C infections are also very critical to developing liver cancer. So it means that preventive measures will involve things like the use of vaccination, hepatitis B vaccination, and early treatment of hepatitis B and hepatitis C, and the avoidance of alcohol. These three things to a large extent reduce. And then a fourth factor, the exposure to aflatoxin. In fact, it has been recently reported that some granules in the sub-Saharan Africa were found to have high levels of mycotoxin. Mycotoxin is a product of the mycotoxin, or aflatoxin specifically, is a product of a fungus called Aspergillus fumigatus. Now, this produces fungal spores which contaminate granite and are found in significant levels, and they have been shown to contribute significantly to liver cancer in the African population. And in fact, recently we were told that some of our exported granules were reversed, were denied access in certain parts of the world, in other parts of the world, because of high levels of mycotoxins. So it's important that we put this in perspective. Other forms, other preventive measures like reduction of radiation. So for people who are working in radiological departments, it's important that they regulate their exposure, they take the necessary measures and exposure. For patients who have albino, for albino patients who have albinism, it's important that when they go out in the sun, they are well protected, they are well covered up, they will use their sunshades and they use their proper clothing to avoid unnecessary exposure. If all these measures are taken, including others that I may not have mentioned, and a patient still develops cancer, it's important that because we are a highly religious society, and because we do not have a very, very organized health system, patients take a long time before they present in facilities where they can get proper care. It is important that in as much as you go to the church to pray and you go to the mosque to pray for your miracle, you should also do the right thing and get proper health advice from a doctor in a proper health facility so that you can be referred appropriately. Most health facilities do not have what it takes to treat cancer or even to make a diagnosis of cancer, so you would require a referral. So presenting in any health facility with proper referral can reduce the delay before the marked spread of the cancer, which makes it more difficult and more expensive to treat.
All right, well, there you have it. We're given, these tips on how to ensure that we live a healthy life to avoid contracting, this cancer thing. I mean, that's one of the deadliest diseases all over the world. And today is dedicated to creating that awareness to ensure that people, close the gaps in terms of getting screening tests, in terms of getting the vaccines, and also making the healthy choices that we need to make to protect ourselves and also our loved ones.
Yes, now the thing is, it's quite a large number, but 10 million people actually die from cancer every year. And this is actually more than HIV, tuberculosis, from any kind of disease. So this is the reason why we need to do as much as we can to protect ourselves. If you look at, in the whole year, there are lots of, days set out, for cancer. We have the Cancer Awareness Month on October, that comes on October. And then, just for almost every month, there's something that has to do with cancer awareness, because there are different kinds of cancer. And it is not a joke. It is not funny at all. Now, and, there's actually a projection that by 2030, cancer deaths would rise by 13 million. That's if we don't act and if nothing is actually done about it.
So, I mean, that's an alarming figure, and it's, you know, it's a pointer to the fact that we all need to live that, you know, healthy lifestyle. I mean, you heard the doctor talking about, you know, excess smoking, you know, drinking carelessly, for those who take that for granted. I mean, you need to watch out for your health. So it's not just about, you know, getting high all the time, but, you know, it's very important that you know, take time to watch your health, because trust me, people that may suffer the implication of that may not necessarily be you, but people around you. You know, you are likely to have a family, and then just when they need you most.
You know, I actually know of someone, you know, it's not possible that, you know, where we are right now, in the world we are today, there's someone that doesn't know someone who actually died from cancer. Just recently, you know, I lost a secondary school classmate, you know, to breast cancer, and it is no respecter of age. That's it. Cancer is no respecter of age. You could be young and still have cancer. You could be a child and still have cancer. You could be aged and still have cancer. And it is no respecter of where you are, because there's a report that 65% of cancer cases now is from developing countries, because there's this myth that you know, it's only rich people that, you know, catch cancer or have cancer and everything. No, according to this particular report, more than 65% of cancer that's happened in, you know, developing countries. So, you know, if you're, it doesn't even matter. Even if you're in a rural community, you can actually still catch cancer. You're susceptible to cancer.
So it's very important that we, you know, take time to do that. I mean, always, you know, create that habit of, you know, getting screening all the time to detect early enough, you know, because you don't want to let it get to a point where it cannot be treated, you know, at a very advanced stage, and then it becomes detected. That will be a problem in itself. And also, you know, also for authorities to make sure that people living with cancer have access to good health care, you know, services, and, you know, as well as on our own part as individuals, you know, they say prevention is better than cure. So
increase understanding as well, understanding of everything that has to do with cancer, and that is these are the only ways that we can actually, you know, bring a change.
Yeah. So healthy living is very important. Our choices when it comes to what we eat, what we drink, you know, all of that is very important in protecting us, you know, from cancer. So that's as far as that is concerned. Now we'll take a look at yet another video, and talking about, you know, Facebook celebrating 18th anniversary today. Quite a number of issues really Facebook has done to us, you know, in terms of bringing people together, in terms of giving people the opportunity to connect with one another. You know, sometimes when you're on Facebook and then you see suggested friends, maybe someone you've met like 15, 20 years ago, and then you just never know, you know, how you got to miss connection or contact with that person, and then boom, it resurfaces on your Facebook page.
And then
that happens a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You actually meet new people as well, and you network, and you actually make lifelong friends, you know, on social media. I think when you talk about social media, the first thing that comes to people's minds is Facebook, because they've actually done a lot, you know, and they're not just, you know, would I say Facebook is more family friendly? Yes, yeah, but you also have Twitter, youth friendly. You also have WhatsApp. WhatsApp for close people close to you, and then Instagram as well. So they're actually doing a lot when it comes to technology.
Yeah, but on the flip side of it, you know, have you had moments where you feel like you have this number of followers in thousands, and then still you feel like
very few support you, or
yeah, you feel like alone. I mean, you feel like
I think the distance has something to do with that.
Yeah. So
yes.
and somehow it seemed to be replacing real friendship in terms of, you know, us taking the time out to like value our friends, like to meet them physically, you know, in real times, you know, rather than just on social media and all of that. So we'll talk more about that. Let's take a look, you know, at this short clip.
Facebook is celebrating its 18th year anniversary, and a couple of things that we have observed over the years with Facebook. They have improved their platform. They have had to battle privacy concerns put forth by users. They have also been able to handle some of the business markets that have been Facebook created in terms of supporting businesses grow, advertising, and also buying a couple of companies that could help its brand stay stable. Over the years, we've also seen Facebook change its name, change its board, and also its approach towards its primary goal of connecting people. Under their list of lineups of apps that they have recently, that we're used to, the WhatsApp, Instagram, and a couple of others that they are also putting into development. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg announced some of the programs and apps that they are planning on developing. That of the Horizon space, the Nazare, basically virtual reality space. And the virtual reality space we're going to see happen in the next 5 years from Facebook promises to change the way businesses are operating. We already know that from the pandemic era, people have been mostly at home, developing programs from home, working from home. Facebook have thought about that and also doing some applications and softwares and also plugins that will link up with the Facebook community, which is already existing membership, and also expand its services. So you might end up having a future with Facebook where virtual reality becomes a normal thing. You can sit from your home and also at work from home and be at the office. You can convert your home space into an office space. So yes, it's Facebook has actually grown into our personal lives now. We have basically everything around us connected to Facebook. So it has been a wonderful 18 years for them, and we can only expect more into the coming years. However, the biggest concerns around the world is still privacy and data control. So governments are still looking at ways to have this under check, and I'm sure that the conversations will keep going even as Facebook gets older in business.
Well, 18 years is quite a long time.
Yeah, quite a long time. There are lessons to learn, though. I mean, there's one thing that is associated to social media, Facebook inclusive, talking about addiction to phones is something that young people must watch out for.
Try to stay away from your phones and have some time for family and for other things.
Yes, and also, the issue of, making comparisons with others. When you see things on, social media, you tend to think that this is the reality of these people. You never really know.
What they
everybody looks gorgeous on social media.
Very rich as well on social media.
And then if you are not careful, you end up being depressed, feeling like you are lesser, and all of that. So just be mindful of that is also something to watch out for. Well, that's that for the issue, the conversation on Facebook.
All right. While we're done with that, let's to give us an update on sports, on the ongoing African Cup of Nations. The semi-final matches have been concluded, and Senegal will play Egypt in the final. But we have our correspondent Olujide Olushola from Yaoundé in Cameroon to give us updates on what is happening in AFCON. Hi, good morning, Olujide.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes. So, can you bring us up to speed on what is happening in Cameroon as of now?
Okay. Right now, the Cameroon fans, they are not happy. It's expected they'll not be happy that their team lost on penalties yesterday to Egypt. As of yesterday night, the fans were on rampage. They were destroying some properties around the stadium, wherever they were. It was expected that they'll be angry, but nobody thought they would go that far, to be destroying public facilities and everything. So I hope the police and the soldiers will come in place this morning to ensure that there's more security and there's more, freedom for everybody to move around. But nobody expects us to go that route. Football is a game. Anybody can win, anybody can lose. And of course, Cameroon did their best, but penalty is anybody's game. But it's fine. They're not just happy. They're not happy. Some fans are okay with it that at least their country made it up to the semi-finals. But while some who are probably too passionate about the game went on rampage early this morning. after the game from 11:30 and above. They were going around the country, around the Yaoundé, and destroying certain things across the states.
All right. Now, what are the expectations in the coming days, for players there?
I believe now, in terms of security, the government will roll out more security personnel onto the streets to ensure that there's safety and security for everybody. And we also believe that the players too will be mindful of how they go out, because now the 4 countries, talking about Cameroon, Egypt, Senegal, they'll be in this end of the tournament, because they need to see the Cameroon players, because they are the ones who are at home. So basically, that's just what is going on right now. I won't say there's fear, but people, I've not gone out this money yet, but I believe that people will be going out their normal businesses. But I also expect to see more security personnel on the road, just as they have been in the past. They've been going around the country, around the states, around the country every now and then. So I believe more of them will roll out this money, just to ensure safety and security for everybody.
So how are you protecting yourself? We hope you're keeping you're staying safe wherever you are.
Yeah. I'm safe where I am. I'm safe. No. I don't think they will. I don't think. It's just they're just being overzealous. They're just being passionate about the fact that they lost. Basically, not that they're army people. No, it's just normal. They lost. They could not control their emotions, and they just went out of the stadium wherever they were. Just destroying the offices, shops, breaking glasses, just whatever they could lay their hands upon to do. It's a normal thing that happens, but it's abnormal, but it's almost normal to us in this part of the world. When we lose games, we just tend to do certain things just to vet our anger, and that's more reasons why these players need to be protected, because the players are the ones who actually lost these games, and they might want to vent the anger of the players, which I know, of course, they will not get close to the players anyhow. They can't get close to them.
All right. Is there a chance that this could have an implication on the schedule, the timetable of the matches that we have left?
Okay, before the game yesterday, CAF released a statement that before the semi-finals yesterday, they released a statement that the third place match was supposed to be played on Sunday, but now it's been played on Saturday, which is tomorrow, while the finals will still take place on Sunday as scheduled. But I don't think the little violence now will change the schedule. Everything will still go as planned. Like I said earlier, they'll just bring in more security personnel to ensure that the stadiums are because it's just only too many. The third place match and the final match, so they can afford to bring in personnel from other parts of the country, into this Yaoundé, and see that everybody is safe. So I don't think this what happened yesterday night or early this morning will affect the schedule of the remaining 2 matches of the AFCON tournament.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Olujide Olushola, our correspondent from Cameroon, giving us an update there. Please stay safe.
Well, thank you. Okay, it's very important for fans to, understand that it is just a game and it is not war. Yes, when you lose, feelings will definitely be hurt and expectations will be dashed. But, it's just a game. You move on.
I mean, in a game, there has to be a winner and a loser as well. Mm-hmm. So you just have to pick yourself up and learn from the lessons, there. Well, with that, we've come to the end of the show for today. It's been quite interesting. In case you have missed for most part of it, you can always catch up on our YouTube and also subscribe to our other channels, other social media platforms. This is being streamed live on our YouTube every morning. So it's where you want to be, really.
All right, I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll meet again next week.
And I am Ayub Elia. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.